My name is Aita Susi. I used to be a pediatrician, and now I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and I work with families and children in the area of ADHD. Any questions? Let's turn the lights on a little bit here. Yeah.
In the last section you just went over, could you talk about some of the consequences of raised voices and pointing, because that's a common theme in the house?
Yeah. What happens when a human being has a lot of energy coming at them, a lot of loud voice, or whether it's a fist or a finger or whatever, the natural reaction is to get afraid. Okay? So we naturally go into that fight, flight, freeze reaction. It's like, oh my God, I'm scared, something's coming at me, and we contract, we protect ourselves, and then we can't take in the things that we need to learn. Because our effort goes into managing being afraid instead of managing the new information that we're supposed to be learning. That's why the finger pointing and the raised voices. It has a place. Okay, your kid runs into the street and there's a car coming.
Sure.
You're gonna flip your lid, and that's what happens. But if the socks aren't picked up and there's a big adult temper tantrum about the not picked up socks, the child's just going to learn to be afraid instead of learning ways to cope.
And the next statement about judging.
Yes.
Give an example that would kind of motivate. Judging, that sort of thing. Is it along the lines of, you're doing this, but your brother doesn't do this, that sort of thing?
Well, yeah, at any point in time, in comparison between kids is really painful.
Yeah.
That's just, because kids are individuals and humans, and I suspect you don't want to be judged with your neighbor for how your neighbor drives a car and mows the lawn, does whatever. Same thing with kids. They do not want to be compared. It's easy to do. We've all done it. I've done it. I've got two stepdaughters, and one is this way, and one is, why can't you be like da. We all do it, so we're human, but it's not the best way to address the situation.
Okay, I know in the little booklet I picked up, I think it's National Institute of Mental Health, it says that bipolar disorder can coexist with ADHD. And I know about a year ago there was an article in the New York Times how difficult it is
Yes.
to diagnose bipolar in a child.
Yes.
So is there any such generalization? Generally what happens is this maybe the child has attention deficit and then is approaching adulthood, that bipolar becomes grossly obvious. Is that usually what happens, or no?
The diagnosis of bipolar disorder in a child is still a work in process.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Right now, our criteria for bipolar disorder are basically based on adult behaviors.
Yes.
And we are extrapolating from adult behaviors to a child. Okay, but the way a bipolar adult acts at age 35 is going to be different from the way a bipolar child acts at age 13. So we're still kind of sorting that one out, even just how to diagnose bipolar in kids, let alone diagnosing two conditions. So with that one, I would say go slow, take it carefully, calm down, and look at what the major symptoms are and understand the child.
It's so hard. And the same with the medication, I know they're doing a whole lot on DNA and stuff like that, and I think that's where it's going to head with this.
Mm-hmm.
That you're going to be able to do some kind of test to see which medication would be proper for you. Because they don't know, and they go through all these trials, and they can have all kinds of bad side effects.
There are lots of side effects. That's one thing I didn't talk about. The medicines can make you active, so it's hard to fall asleep sometimes. Some kids don't grow as well. They don't eat as much. It is a work in process.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if you don't give the child medication and they can't function in school, you've got another set.
Absolutely.
So trial and error.
It is real trial and error. I'm going to take one more question. In the back, you had a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned about developing addiction to amphetamines. Like
Right.
my son is 18, he just turns 18 this week. some thinking about taking him to a doctor and get medication, but
Mhm.
he develops substance abuse. And the other thing is that over time, would patients need to increase the dose, or is there a time where they can just stop and be fine?
Right, right. Okay. I think I'll answer your questions in backwards order. Some people outgrow their medicines and do not take them for the rest of their life, and some people don't. It really varies on the individual person. Ellen is going to talk a lot about adult ADD and the ways to manage that, and one of the things that I believe in a lot is coaching. There are coaches who teach adults how to manage their ADD. That may be a substitute for medicine. It may be an addition to medicine. Okay, but as an adult, you can learn to organize things, to color code your file system, to have clear boxes so you can see, oh, socks are in this box and underwear is in that box, and how you make life manageable with ADD, because you can manage life with ADD. So you can outgrow it with help. I think without help, you're kind of floundering on your own, and it's like anything else. If I don't receive help in learning how to fix my car, the chances of me figuring out how to do it on my own are pretty nil. So we need help to learn things. That's part of being a human being. So as an ADD adult, getting outside help is really beneficial. In terms of the addiction question, there are people who overuse Adderall, for sure. Okay, Adderall is a combination of norepinephrine and dopamine. Norepinephrine gets you all revved up and da-da-da-da-da. That's what brings your brain online. Dopamine is part of, too much dopamine can stimulate the pleasure centers and can lead to addictions, like you said.
But that doesn't happen anywhere near as much in ADHD.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You just don't want to be, you need to find the right amount of medicine. That's why you need to talk with different people. You need to talk with the patient and the family members and school teachers and get signed releases so that you can talk with everybody and see how the person behaves with and without medicine. And there are guidelines. Okay, you're not allowed to prescribe more than a certain amount of medicine. But in general, the kids who have ADHD and are on medicine have less issues with addictions. Okay, medicine is preventative. Stimulant medicine is preventative against addictions. Okay, it's the kids who are not medicated who end up with substance abuse problems because their lives out of control, and so they use the medicine to calm themselves down or manage, and they do it inappropriately, and it becomes illegal. And And one more question. I'm sorry, you had your hand up as well.
Do you see? Well, I was going to ask you about the medicines too, but they are like Ritalin.
Yes.
That had kind of a bad rep, and kids didn't want to take it because they said it was going to be too short, and this and that, and the other did stunt their growth. And you heard that also. People said that.
Right.
Is there any indication of ADHD or ADD in the sleep patterns, other than the behavior patterns?
Right.
Are there any other physical symptoms that you can point to, especially in the area of sleep?
Right. Right.
I mean, you're saying after they're medicated, this could go wrong with their sleep, but does something happen to sleep? And are there kids, second part of the question, are there kids who are lethargic, they're not moving as quickly? So on the one end of the spectrum, you have the kid that's moving around, and on the other end of the spectrum, you have the kid who's not moving as fast as anybody else. Now, is that ADHD?
That's a real complicated question because, about this many things can make you not move fast. I will say the inattentive form is the child who kind of daydreams and looks out the window. The teacher calls home and says, well, Johnny's just not interested in math. He's always staring out the window. Well, then you ask her, and it's, he does great in history class because he loves African history, for example. But when it comes to math and science, he's bored. and he's gone. That's the inattentive form of ADD.
So the answer is yes.
Yes, oh, absolutely. Yes, ADD can make you just kind of sit there and not want to do anything. It's like, oh, they're daydreaming. They're off thinking about something that's more interesting than what's going on in the moment. In terms of actual sleep patterns for kids diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, I don't really know the answer to that. That's not something I've studied. I can tell you that kids with ADHD, they need to run and play and jump and go to the playground. Winter is hard on kids with ADHD because it's bad weather and they can't get outside. If you get these kids outside running for an hour a day, they're going to sleep better at the end of the day.
Adults have a lot of trouble with that because once you start hyper-focusing on something, if you can't stop and no one's making you go to bed, you may get very strange sleep patterns.
Yes. Okay. I think we will bring this to a close.